When you think of Terraria's most underrated item, what comes to mind? Maybe the vampire knives or obsidian armor for how far it can take you through the game. But what if I told you that it's neither of those? This item adds so much nuance to the game's movement, and I really do think that it goes under the radar for a lot of Terraria players. What's the item, you ask? Well, it's none other than the grappling hook, which, albeit simple, actually plays a huge role in how you navigate, fight, and explore throughout your playthrough. I'm not sure if it's because there's so much flashy stuff in the game stealing the spotlight, but I definitely feel it doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. And in this video, I'm hoping to change that. Firstly, for the people that don't know how the grappling hook works, I'm going to go over it very quickly. So basically, when you have one equipped, you can press the E key, and the hook shoots wherever you're aiming. Once the hook makes contact with a surface, it latches on and pulls you in. Of course, there are limitations, such as the fact that hook ranges aren't infinite, so sometimes if the surface is too far, it retracts back to your character. While on paper this does sound like a simple mechanic, I'm sure you can understand how this item lets you move around in ways you can't just do by running or jumping alone. The physics behind this mechanic mean you can get lots of speed, zip over gaps, and quickly change direction midair. Among those core things, one of the biggest gameplay impacts is how grappling hooks let you avoid fall damage. I'm not sure if it's the same for you guys, but in the early game, I found myself taking a lot of damage or even fully dying due to fall damage. But if you time your grapple and latch onto a block just before hitting the ground, you can completely negate all fall damage taken, which I think is pretty sweet. In boss fights, grappling hooks let you reposition instantly by swinging onto platforms, which gives a huge advantage in scenarios where it may seem impossible to dodge an attack without that direct burst-like movement. Being able to control your position in midair is massive, especially against bosses with large or unpredictable attack patterns. Beyond combat, grappling hooks speed up traversing the map, especially a great amount of pre-hard mode when all you have is Hermes boots. In some cases, it also may make building easier as you're able to infinitely scale certain walls or obstacles that may be in your way. These aren't really things that I think the average player would think of, but I thought I would mention them anyway to really show how many uses a grappling hook has. The next thing I wanted to talk about is the stats. Every grappling hook in Terraria has different stats. Things like reach, speed, number of hooks you're able to shoot, and in some cases, a gimmick that changes their behavior. This variety gives them a lot more depth than people realize, and honestly, I think if you asked a bunch of players what their favorite hook is, you'd probably get a different answer every time. And what makes them even more interesting is how they evolve throughout your playthrough. When you first get your hands on a grappling hook, it's usually a basic gem hook, maybe amethyst or topaz, depending on what ores you find early on. While these hooks aren't as impressive as later ones, they still give you access to grappling in the first place, which even in its most basic form is a massive upgrade over not having one. As you progress, this is when you're presented with multiple options, which means you can tailor it to whatever playstyle you prefer. While there are hooks that are just simply better than others, there are hooks that also provide something else in a niche or creative way. A good example of this would be the Hook of Dissonance, with its practically non-existent grapple speed, aka teleportation. These kind of gimmicks keep grappling hooks from becoming stale, and give an overall reason to keep trying to upgrade them. Another thing that I find interesting is that, unlike weapons and armor, grappling hooks are completely optional. Sure, better hooks make movement smoother, but the game never really forces you to get one, let alone upgrade it. That's what makes them so unique. They're something that I find very powerful, but never encouraged to use. You can beat the entire game with a gem hook if you really wanted to, but choosing to explore the variety adds this whole extra layer of depth. The last thing that I wanted to address is the idea that wings and other movement items make grappling hooks obsolete. While this judgment is valid, I still just can't agree. Grappling hooks add a unique nuance to movement that wings, dashes, and rocket boots just can't replicate. This is especially amplified when you look at the later hooks, like the lunar hook, which doesn't really have a downside at all and is honestly a must-have if you want to have your movement potential maximized. Sure, you could say that the lunar hook doesn't really have a use at the point that you're able to acquire it, since you're only able to craft it once you have lunar fragments. But let's be real, how often are we playing Terraria without post-game content mods, okay? And with that being said, that concludes the video. If you guys liked it, leave a like, subscribe, and yeah, let me know what items you think are underrated.